At 0953 hours on September 28, 2025, a Ukrainian MiG-29 Fulcrum sliced through the air just 60 feet above the Dnipro River. Its mission was clear: destroy a Russian forward operations base near the industrial outskirts of Tokmak, a stronghold that had become the nerve center for drone and missile strikes across southern Ukraine. The MiG carried a single modified Joint Direct Attack Munition Extended Range glide bomb worth barely $28,000, but capable of hitting its target 40 miles away with deadly accuracy, within just 10 meters. Inside Tokmak, Russian commanders felt untouchable. Their Panzer S-1 systems, Tor M2 launchers, and layers of electronic jamming blanketed the skies in radar protection. They believed nothing could reach them. They were fatally wrong, because just 19 kilometers away, hidden deep within Ukrainian territory, a team of radar operators was watching every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What happened next would turn the so-called Fortress of Tokmak into a firestorm of steel and flame. Colonel Viktor Samarin, commander of the Russian 45th Air Defense Regiment, was calm that morning. For months, his defenses had stood firm against every attempt by Ukrainian aircraft to penetrate the airspace. He had absolute faith in his systems. 3 layers of protection surrounded Tokmak. The first, a wall of Panzer S-1 batteries, covered a 20-kilometer range, hunting down any low-altitude threats. The second layer, composed of Tor M2 launchers, was designed to intercept targets flying up to 12 kilometers high. And finally, the Krasuka 4 jammers created a massive electronic shield, blinding any GPS-based weapons over the entire grid. Russian doctrine was simple: no aircraft crosses Tokmak alive. The patrol patterns were routine, the defenses airtight. They had done this hundreds of times before. Same procedures, same confidence, same arrogance. But that morning, something they couldn't see was already closing in. While Russian spotters scanned the horizon for incoming drones, they were completely blind to what approached just below the radar line. Flying lower than most treetops, Major Oleksandr "Falcon" Kovalenko pushed his MiG-29 through the air like a shadow skimming the ground. His aircraft's radar signature merged with terrain clutter, making it invisible to Russian sensors. This wasn't a standard strike mission. His MiG carried a hybrid American-Ukrainian JDAM-ER bomb, a weapon never meant to fit a Soviet jet. Ukrainian engineers had literally hot-wired a digital bridge between incompatible systems, creating what many called a Frankenstein setup. The cost difference was staggering. The modified bomb cost just $28,000, while the Russian air defense network guarding Tokmak exceeded $60 million. For 3 straight days, Ukrainian engineers had tested gyroscopes, programmed inertial coordinates, and waited for perfect weather. Everything was ready. The trap was set. The stakes that day were simple but brutal. If Russia continued to hold Tokmak, they would maintain control over drone operations targeting cities across Ukraine, including Zaporizhzhia and Kryvyi Rih. Supply convoys, already under constant attack, would face even greater losses. But if Ukraine could take out this command center, the effect would be immediate, crippling Russia's southern logistics and giving Ukraine the upper hand for counter-offensive operations. Major Kovalenko checked his instruments. Fuel levels showed 5,800 pounds remaining, 1 JDAM armed, 60 defensive flares. Everything was functioning perfectly. He took a deep breath, steadying his hand on the throttle. The bait was taken. The ghosts were about to wake up. At 0955 hours, the MiG-29 began its attack run. The jet roared forward at 540 knots, barely 50 feet above the ground. Distance to target, 42 kilometers. Using nap of earth flying, Kovalenko followed the riverbanks, diving between low hills and industrial ruins to mask his radar signature every few seconds. The ground blurred beneath him, and every turn felt like threading a needle at supersonic speed. Inside the Russian command post, Operators sat calmly at their consoles. The P-18 Spoon Rest radar, an old but reliable VHF system operating at 150 megahertz, displayed faint echoes on the edge of its range, too weak to classify. One of the radar technicians assumed it was a flock of birds. He was wrong. At 0956 hours, a Costa 2E radar showed a small anomaly. For a brief second, it detected something, fast, low, and erratic, before the contact disappeared again. Moments later, the Pantsir's optical tracker picked up a glint of sunlight reflecting off the MiG's canopy. The alarm tones sounded across the bunker. The system's hydraulics whined as the turret rotated to face the direction of the flash. But by the time they had a lock, the MiG had already dropped behind a ridge and vanished. Every second they scanned, they lost him again. Colonel Samarin leaned over the radar console, realizing this wasn't a random blip. Something was coming. He immediately ordered the Tor M2 launchers to power up. The 9A331 radar systems began scanning the sky, their dish-shaped arrays rotating methodically. Each Tor could track 48 targets and engage 4 at once. But that advantage meant nothing if they couldn't find what to shoot at. Inside the MiG, Kovalenko's SPO-15 Berioza radar warning receiver crackled with static. The sound shifted between searching tones. The radar beams were sweeping, but none had locked yet. Then suddenly, the warning tone changed pitch. One of the Tors had entered track mode. The hunter had found its prey. Kovalenko's flight computer automatically executed Protocol Echo 7, an electronic countermeasure designed to scramble the radar's Doppler return. To the enemy, his aircraft appeared as part of the ground itself, just another patch of noise. But every maneuver came at a cost. His fuel dropped from 4,900 pounds to 4,200 in less than a minute. He was running out of time and fuel, but not options. For the next 90 seconds, a deadly dance unfolded. Russian radar sweeps locked onto him, and he dropped altitude by 20 feet. Optical sensors acquired his heat signature, and he launched flares to blind them. Each countermeasure was a chess move. Every mistake could mean death. Distance to target now, 21 kilometers. Altitude, 80 feet. Then came the real challenge. At 0959 hours, the Krasuka 4 jammer switched on, flooding the sky with noise across L1 and L2 GPS bands. Kovalenko's GPS screen flickered violently as his satellite lock dropped from 8 to 4. That meant his JDAM's accuracy fell from 5 meters to 30. A huge difference between hitting the command center and missing into a field. Kovalenko had seconds to decide. He could abort and retreat, or trust the upgraded ring laser gyroscope inertial system that didn't rely on satellites at all. He made the call instantly. "Falcon to command," he said. "GPS jam confirmed. Going blind. Committing strike." At 0959 to 42, the MiG reached the initial point, 12 kilometers from the target. He began a steep climb, pulling 5.5 Gs as the twin RD-33 engines screamed in full afterburner. The Tor M2 radar immediately switched from search mode to full lock. Seconds later, the missile launch warning blared. A 9M331 missile was already in the air. Kovalenko's altimeter spun upward. 10,000 feet, 12,000, 14,000. The climb rate was 280 meters per second. At exactly 15,000 feet, with airspeed bleeding to 190 knots, he released the JDAM. The bomb dropped clean, and its diamond-shaped wings deployed in a burst of white smoke. The MiG rolled, inverted, and dove hard, pulling away. Behind him, the Russian missile closed in, 11 seconds to impact. At 10 Nastex, the strike order came through Ukrainian command channels. Strike confirmed. The JDAM-ER sliced silently through the air, gliding at nearly Mach 0.9. Inside the Russian base, drone operators continued their morning routines, completely unaware that death was descending from the stratosphere. They had less than half a minute to live. At 10 Tau 31, the weapon entered terminal dive. From 9,000 meters up, it pierced the warehouse roof, then smashed through 3 levels of reinforced concrete before detonating deep inside the command hub. The explosion converted 445 pounds of tritonal into pure energy. Pressure reached 310 psi within 10 meters of the blast. Temperatures soared past 2,900 degrees Celsius. The shockwave ripped through the complex at 1,700 meters per second, faster than a bullet. The central support columns vaporized instantly. 8,000 tons of concrete and steel began collapsing in a chain reaction. Each floor slammed into the one below until the building imploded on itself like a house of cards. The total collapse lasted just 6.2 seconds. A massive dust cloud rose 500 feet into the air, visible from Ukrainian positions across the Dnipro. Secondary explosions followed as Igla missiles and drone batteries cooked off, creating a rolling series of fireballs that lit up the horizon. 47 Russian personnel were confirmed dead. Over $42 million worth of equipment was annihilated. Back in the sky, Kovalenko fought to keep his damaged jet in the air. A single piece of shrapnel had pierced one of his engines. His hydraulic warning lights flashed red, and his controls felt heavy. But the MiG-29, built like a flying tank, held together. He limped home at 800 feet altitude, one engine dead, every gauge screaming. Behind him, the entire Tokmak drone command base no longer existed. The aftermath was beyond imagination. Where once stood a heavily fortified Russian base, there was now nothing but smoking ruins and twisted steel. The air shimmered from heat, and thick black smoke rose like a signal visible for miles. Soldiers miles away said it looked like a small sun erupting over Tokmak. Major Kovalenko guided his crippled jet back across the Dnipro, holding barely 1,000 feet altitude. With his remaining engine whining at minimum thrust, he crossed into friendly airspace and finally exhaled. On Ukraine's tactical map, the effect was instant and devastating for the enemy. Russian drone operations were halted for 48 hours. A major radar coverage gap opened across the southern front. Convoy resupply toward Melitopol was delayed by 2 full days. Russian analysts scrambled to determine what had hit them. But by the time they pieced it together, Ukrainian forces had already redeployed and vanished into new positions. With less than $30,000 worth of ordnance, Ukraine had wiped out a multi-million-dollar military hub. It proved something undeniable. In modern warfare, victory doesn't belong to those with more weapons, but to those who can think faster, adapt quicker, and strike smarter. In 2025, brute force alone no longer wins wars. Intelligence, innovation, and precision do. So, what do you think? Was this the boldest low-altitude strike of the war so far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more real battlefield missions, broken down, decoded, and brought to life.